She lost her son 2 years ago. On a frigid night, a mysterious child knocks on her door, drenched, holding a drawing identical to ones her son used to make. Unsettling secrets begin to surface when the little visitor writes, "I know where he is." Journey of faith and hope begins, revealing truths that will change their lives forever. Prepare your heart for a story of maternal love that overcomes all boundaries. Subscribe, leave a like, and comment where you're watching from. Night fell heavily over Ashton Creek, that mountain town nestled in the Appalachian foothills, where houses with historic architecture seemed to whisper tales of forgotten times. Rain traced paths down the fogged windows of Helena's apartment. A renowned child psychologist at 35, she carried the weight of a seemingly endless search on her shoulders. 2 seasons had passed since Miguel, her only son, vanished without a trace beyond an unfinished drawing left on the kitchen table. 2 years of unanswered questions, of compassionate looks that could no longer hide the pity, of days counted in sighs and nights drowned in silent tears. Helena kept the apartment exactly as it was the day Miguel disappeared. The toys methodically arranged on the shelf, the cup with colorful dinosaurs always filled with fresh water, the bed made with the astronaut blanket he loved so much. Some called it denial. She preferred to call it hope, that stubborn flame that refused to go out, even when everyone around her had already given up. The living room clock struck 9 when knocks on the door cut through the silence. Not ordinary knocks, the polite, kind announcing expected visitors. These were urgent, almost desperate, as if whoever was on the other side was fighting against time. Helena felt a shiver run down her spine, the kind of premonition science couldn't explain, but that local folklore in Ashton Creek knew well, a warning from fate. When she opened the door, time seemed to freeze. A child of about 7, soaked by the relentless rain, trembled like a leaf in the wind. His eyes, large and expressive, seemed to hold secrets far too old for someone so young, but it was what the child held between small, cold fingers that made Helena's heart skip a beat. A drawing, seemingly done in haste, but unmistakably in the same style Miguel used to draw. Trees with smiling faces and birds with disproportionately large wings. "Who are you, little one?" Helena asked, kneeling to be at the child's level. The boy, for she could now see it was a boy, just clutched the drawing to his chest and remained silent. His eyes, however, spoke volumes. Helena knew she should call the authorities, follow protocols, act like the professional she was. But something in that child's expression immediately transported her to the place she occupied, not as a psychologist, but as a mother. Without hesitation, she opened the door wider. "Come in, let's get you dry and warm. We'll figure out the rest later." Some decisions change our lives in instants, choices that, looking back, we realize were the exact moment everything shifted. For Helena, taking in that mysterious child was one of those choices. In the days that followed, the boy, who remained silent, settled into Helena's routine as if he had always been part of it. With patient gestures, she discovered he liked hot chocolate with cinnamon, just like Miguel. She observed with a mix of astonishment and apprehension how he arranged the building blocks in patterns identical to those her son created. And more disturbingly, how he instinctively went to Miguel's room, sitting on the bed with the naturalness of someone returning to a familiar place. Helena was walking a fine line. As a psychologist, she knew the danger of projection, of seeing in the mysterious boy only what her desperate heart wanted to see. As a mother, she felt unable to ignore the coincidences piling up day after day. In the first week, while preparing breakfast, pancakes with maple syrup, another of Miguel's favorites, Helena froze when she saw the note on the refrigerator. Using colored magnets, the exact same ones her son used to leave her little notes, it was written in a shaky, childish hand. "I know where he is." The plate she held slipped from her hands, shattering on the kitchen floor. The noise attracted the boy, who entered barefoot, stopping carefully before the scattered shards. When Helena, recovering from the shock, asked about the note, the little visitor just smiled. A smile that didn't belong to a 7-year-old, an ancient, wise smile, almost as if he had lived many lives before this one. "Who are you?" Helena asked again, this time her voice thick with contained emotion. "Please tell me, do you know my son? Do you know where Miguel is?" The boy simply picked up one of the fallen magnets and placed it back on the fridge, forming an arrow that pointed towards the mountains rising majestically beyond the kitchen window. From then on, the Ashton Creek winter seemed to harden, as if nature itself were conspiring to keep Helena and the mysterious boy isolated in that apartment full of memories. Unusual snowstorms for the region closed roads. The phone often now went dead due to frozen lines. And Helena, who once lived solely to find Miguel, now divided her mission between deciphering the little visitor's enigmas and protecting him from a world that would surely ask questions she had no answers for. The authorities, of course, eventually showed up. Mariana, a social worker with stern features and a suspicious gaze, was assigned to the case after a well-meaning neighbor reported the mysterious child's presence. "Dr. Helena," Mariana said during her first visit, her professional tone barely masking her disapproval, "I understand you're in a situation, but we cannot ignore protocols. This child needs to be registered, identified, and eventually placed in suitable care while we search for his family." Helena felt her heart tighten. Losing the boy now would be like losing Miguel all over again. "He's fine here with me," she replied more defensively than intended. "I'm a child psychologist. I'm qualified to care for him while we figure out his origins. Besides," she hesitated for a moment, weighing her next words, "I believe he might have information about my son." The look Mariana gave her was heavy with a pity Helena knew all too well. The same look she received from friends, family, even the police officers who had long since filed Miguel's case away in the cold case files. "Helena," Mariana dropped the professional title, her voice softening. "I know it's hard to accept, but projecting your hopes onto this child won't bring your son back. This boy needs professional help, not impossible expectations." Before Helena could respond, the mysterious boy appeared at the living room doorway, carrying something that silenced both women. The old carved wooden chess set that belonged to Miguel's grandfather, an object Helena kept stored deep in the closet of her son's room, an object the boy couldn't possibly know existed. With deliberately slow movements, the child arranged the pieces on the board, but not conventionally. He created a pattern, a path winding from the center to the edge, ending with the white king positioned precisely towards the mountains visible through the window. That night, after Mariana left with the promise or threat to return soon, Helena sat beside the boy as he finally slept, exhausted after the tense day. In the soft lamplight, she studied his delicate features, searching for some clue, some tangible connection beyond the strange coincidences that kept accumulating. "Who sent you to me?" she whispered, more to herself than to the sleeping boy. "What do you know about my Miguel?" As if answering in his dreams, the boy turned, murmuring incomprehensible words, except for one phrase that made Helena hold her breath: "Angel's Haven." The following morning brought the Winter Festival, an old tradition in Ashton Creek, where the community celebrated its heritage with folk dances, traditional foods, and rituals dating back to older times. Helena had avoided the festivities since Miguel's disappearance. The last time she participated was with her son, just days before losing him. Something, however, compelled her to go this time. Perhaps it was the sparkle in the boy's eyes when he saw the colorful posters scattered around town during their last trip to the market. Or maybe it was that intuition that seemed to guide her since the little visitor's arrival. The town square was transformed. Colored lanterns hung between the ancient trees. The aroma of spices and seasonal treats filled the crisp mountain air. Musicians in traditional attire played cheerful melodies, while couples danced lively jigs. Helena held the boy's hand tightly, afraid of losing him in the crowd. Her eyes, however, couldn't stop scanning every face, every child passing by. A habit she'd developed over the past 2 years, always searching, always hoping to find Miguel among strangers. It happened during the children's choir performance. The children, dressed in festive outfits, were singing a traditional song when, suddenly, the mysterious boy pulled his hand free from Helena's. Before she could stop him, he walked purposefully towards the makeshift stage and, to everyone's Astonishment, especially Helena's, began to sing. It wasn't the choir's song, it was a lullaby, a melody Helena's mother had created especially for Miguel, a song no one knew besides her, her son, and her deceased grandmother. The boy's voice, clear and crystalline, rose above the surprised murmurs of the crowd. It was the first time Helena had heard him speak, or in this case sing, and every note was like a knife to her heart, every word a confirmation of what she already suspected but feared to admit. This boy, somehow, knew. Miguel. Tears streamed freely down Helena's face as the boy finished the song. For a moment, the entire festival seemed frozen in time, as if everyone present had been touched by the strange magic of that moment. It was Elder Maeve, the most respected elder in Ashton Creek, known for her folk wisdom and healing abilities, who broke the silence. With slow but determined steps, leaning on her carved wooden cane, she approached the boy. "It's been a long time since we heard the song of the guide children," she said, her voice ancient like the mountains themselves. Her eyes, clouded by age but still sharp, shifted between the boy and Helena. The old ones believed that when a family is unjustly separated, the universe sends a guide to reunite what has been broken. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Helena knew the local superstitions, the stories grandmothers told during cold winter nights, but she had never given them much credit. Now, however, with her heart pounding against her ribs, she wondered if there was more truth to those legends than her rational psychologist's mind was willing to admit. The boy turned to Helena, and for the first time since his arrival, spoke directly to her. "Angel's Haven, that's where he's waiting for you." The surrounding crowd seemed to disappear. For Helena, in that moment, there were only her and the boy connected by an invisible thread of destiny. "Where is this place?" she asked, kneeling to his level, her hands trembling as she held his small shoulders. "Please, tell me, how can—" "Find Miguel." But the moment of clarity had passed. The boy returned to his usual silence, though his eyes continued to convey that mute message Helena still struggled to fully decipher. It was Elder Maeve who answered. "Angel's Haven isn't a place you find on maps, my child. It's a place that finds you when the time is right." In the days that followed, Helena plunged into a frantic search for any information about the mysterious Angel's Haven. She consulted old town records, asked elderly residents, scoured historical archives at the public library, all in vain. It was as if the place existed only in legends, or in the imagination of a boy who, despite moments of surprising lucidity, remained a lost and possibly traumatized child. Mariana's visits became more frequent and tense. The social worker, determined to enforce protocols, pushed harder for the boy to be transferred to an appropriate institution. Helena resisted with equal determination. "This child is my only connection to Miguel," she argued during a particularly tense visit. "You don't understand what it's like to lose a child, Mariana. You don't understand living with this emptiness, this uncertainty that corrodes the soul." To her surprise, she saw the social worker's eyes fill with tears. "I understand more than you know, Helena," Mariana replied, her voice suddenly stripped of its professional tone. "My son James disappeared 15 years ago. I never found him. That's why I do this work. That's why I worry so much about you and this boy." This revelation changed everything. From adversaries, the two women became confidants, united by the pain only those who have lost a child can comprehend. "There was a time," Mariana continued, accepting the cup of tea Helena offered with trembling hands, "when I too clung to any hope, any sign. I followed leads that went nowhere, believed in stories that were just that, stories." "And you gave up?" Helena asked, dreading the answer. Mariana looked out the window towards the mountains that seemed to hold so many secrets. "No," she finally replied. "I just learned to distinguish between hope and illusion. I learned that sometimes the best we can do is accept what we cannot change and help others avoid the same suffering." "But what if there's a real chance?" Helena insisted. "What if this boy really knows where Miguel is? I can't ignore this, Mariana. I can't just give up when I feel like I'm so close." Before Mariana could answer, a sudden storm, common in That mountainous region during winter broke over Ashton Creek. The power went out, plunging the apartment into semi-darkness. Helena lit candles, her face taking on ghostly outlines in the flickering light. It was in this almost mystical setting that the boy, who had been quiet in Miguel's room throughout the conversation, appeared at the living room doorway. His eyes reflected the candlelight in a way that made both women shiver. "The haven is where the sun first kisses the mountains," he said, his childish voice carrying a certainty that contradicted his age. "Where the three large stones form a natural gateway, where the river makes a perfect curve before descending to the town." Helena and Mariana exchanged astonished glances. "Do you know this place?" Helena asked the social worker. Mariana hesitated, as if carefully weighing her next words. "There are rumors, stories about an isolated community in the mountains. Some people say it's a refuge for special children. Others say it's a cult. I never gave those stories much credit, but what?" Helena pressed, feeling they were on the verge of a crucial revelation. "But some details this boy mentioned. The three stones forming a gateway, the river making the curve. They're too specific to be coincidence." Mariana looked at the boy with new eyes. "How do you know this, little one?" The boy didn't answer directly. Instead, he went back to Miguel's room, returning minutes later with the backpack he carried when he first appeared at Helena's door. From inside, he pulled out something that made Helena clap her hands over her mouth to stifle a cry. A protective amulet made of local stones, identical to the one she had given Miguel on his 7th birthday. "He kept it," the boy said simply, "and sent it back to you so you'd know he's okay." The storm outside seemed insignificant compared to the storm of emotions raging inside Helena. Questions tumbled through her mind. How did this boy get the amulet? Was Miguel really alive? Why? Hadn't he come home? Who or what was Angel's Haven? It was Mariana who brought some order to the chaos. "Tomorrow," she said, with the determination of someone finally finding purpose after years of searching. "We're going to find this place. Together." The next morning, the world seemed washed clean by the previous night's storm. The sky boasted a crystalline blue only seen in the mountains after a good rain. Helena, Mariana, and the mysterious boy prepared for a journey that could change their lives forever. Elder Maeve appeared at the apartment door before they even left, as if summoned by forces beyond common understanding. "I knew this day would come," the elder said, handing Helena a small cloth-wrapped bundle. "When you reach the haven, show them this. They will understand you come in peace." Inside the bundle was a small wooden carving depicting a child with wings, an angel boy whose features vaguely resembled Miguel's. "How did you?" Helena began to ask, but Elder Maeve just smiled, that enigmatic smile that carried the weight of ancient secrets. "There are more connections between heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy, my child. Now go, and may angels guide your steps." The climb up the mountains was arduous. Trails that seemed well marked suddenly vanished, forcing them to forge new paths through the dense vegetation. The boy, however, moved forward with the confidence of someone who knew every stone, every tree, every turn of the terrain. After hours of hiking, when Helena and Mariana felt weariness weighing heavily on their bodies, they reached a natural clearing where 3 enormous rocks formed a natural archway, exactly as the boy had described. Below, a river snaked through the trees, making a perfect curve before descending towards the valley where Ashton Creek rested. "This is it," the boy said, his voice mingling with the sound of running water. Helena felt her heart race. They were so close now, so close she could almost feel Miguel's presence, as if her son were just a few steps away. But the clearing seemed empty. There was no sign of human habitation, no indication that a community existed nearby. "Are you sure?" Mariana asked, unable to hide the skepticism in her voice. "I don't see anything but trees and rocks." The boy didn't answer. Instead, he walked purposefully to the center of the clearing, where a flat stone emerged from the ground like a natural table. Upon it, he placed the amulet that had belonged to Miguel. For a moment, nothing happened, only the wind rustling. The leaves and the distant murmur of the river broke the silence. And then, so softly Helena thought she imagined it. The sound of a simple flute reached their ears, a simple, almost childlike melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. As if responding to an ancient call, the boy began to sing that lullaby again, his clear voice harmonizing perfectly with the mysterious flute. That's when the illusion dissolved. What had previously appeared to be just a rock face covered in moss and vines revealed itself as a cleverly camouflaged entrance, and from this entrance emerged a figure that made Helena hold her breath. A middle-aged woman, gray hair pulled back in a long braid, dressed in simple but impeccably clean clothes. In her eyes, Helena immediately recognized the same ancient wisdom she saw in the mysterious boy's eyes. "You took longer than we expected," the woman said, her English carrying a slight, unidentifiable accent. Her eyes fixed on the bundle Helena still held. "I see Maeve finally decided it was time." "Who are you?" Helena asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Where is my son?" The woman made a sweeping gesture, inviting them to follow her. "My name is Clara. I am the guardian of Angel's Haven. And as for your son, Helena," her use of the name without having been told didn't go unnoticed, "he is here, safe and well. But there is much you need to understand before you see him." The inside of the Asrau mountain revealed itself as a world apart. Natural tunnels, widened and reinforced by human hands, led to spacious chambers where natural light entered through strategically placed openings in the rocky ceiling. The air was surprisingly fresh and pleasant, scented with dried herbs hanging in bundles from the walls. As they ventured deeper into this subterranean world, Helena and Mariana glimpsed signs of a thriving community. Internal gardens lit by ingenious systems of mirrors directing sunlight, workshops where artisans worked with wood, fabric, and stone, makeshift classrooms where children of various ages studied under the watchful supervision of adults. Children. There were so many of them. Some looked at the visitors with open curiosity, others with suspicion. Some seemed completely oblivious to their presence, absorbed in their own worlds. "What is this place?" Mariana asked, her professional tone unable to mask her astonishment. "Who are all these children?" Clara guided them to a circular room where a rustic table was set with tea and simple but appetizing food. "The haven has existed for generations," she explained, pouring tea into handmade ceramic cups. "It was founded by those who believed that certain children, special children, too sensitive for the world out there, needed a refuge where their gifts could flourish without the pressures and judgments of ordinary society." "Gifts?" Helena questioned. "What kind of gifts?" The mysterious boy, who had remained quiet until then, sat down beside Clara, as if it were his natural place. "Antonio," Clara said, gently stroking the boy's hair, "is a finder. He senses broken family bonds and can find the way to reunite them. It's a rare gift even among us." Helena felt a pang of disappointment realizing the boy, Antonio she now knew, had a name, an identity, a story not directly connected to Miguel's. Part of her had begun to believe he might be, in some miraculous way, her own son transformed or disguised. "And Miguel?" she asked, unable to contain her anxiety any longer. "Why is he here? He didn't disappear, did he? He was taken." The accusation hung in the air like a storm cloud. Clara didn't deny it. "Your son possesses an extraordinary gift, Helena. Something that not even you, with all your love and dedication, could fully comprehend. Miguel has the ability to soothe troubled minds through music. He can, literally, touch wounded souls and bring them peace." The words hit Helena like a punch. Miguel had always had a special affinity for music, true. From a very young age, he showed unusual musical sensitivity. But to say he possessed some kind of supernatural gift, that's absurd, Helena felt, anger rising within her. "You kidnapped my son because of a superstition? He's just a talented child, like thousands of others." "No," Clara's voice remained calm but firm. "He is much more than that. And I wasn't the one who brought him here, Helena. It was his own grandfather who sent him." The world seemed to spin around Helena. Her grandfather? The pragmatic, skeptical man who always ridiculed local superstitions? The respected doctor who dedicated his life to science and reason? It was impossible. My father died months before Miguel disappeared, she said, clinging to this fact like a lifeline. And he would never believe in these fantasies. In response, Clara stood up and went to a shelf carved into the rock wall itself. From it, she retrieved an old leather-bound photo album. Your father knew the Haven long before you were born, Helena, she said, opening the album to a specific page. In fact, he was one of us. The time-yellowed photograph showed a group of young people in front of the same stone gateway they had passed through. And among them, unmistakable despite his youth, was Helena's father, his arm around a young woman she recognized as a younger version of Clara. This can't be true, she murmured, but the evidence was right before her eyes. Why did he never tell me? Why hide this from me? Your father chose a different path, Clara explained. He decided to live in the outside world, to use conventional medicine to help people. We respected his choice as we respect all choices, but when he realized his grandson possessed a gift that couldn't fully flourish in the limited environment of the town, he made arrangements, before he died, for Miguel to be brought to the Haven when the time was right. Helena felt as if the floor had vanished beneath her feet. Her entire world, all her certainties crumbled before this revelation. Her father, the man she admired most, had planned her son's disappearance, had conspired behind her back to take Miguel away from her. Why not tell me, she asked, tears of anger and confusion streaming down her face. Why let me suffer for 2 years, thinking my son might be dead? What kind of cruelty is that? It wasn't cruelty, Helena. Clara's voice softened. It was protection. Your father knew you would never allow Miguel to come here voluntarily, and he also knew that if you learned the truth immediately, you would do everything to take him back, even if it meant exposing the Haven to the outside world, a world that wouldn't understand what we do here, that could destroy this refuge, that has existed for generations. And why now? Mariana interjected, having listened silently until then. Why allow Helena to find her son now? Clara turned her gaze to Antonio, who remained silent but attentive to every word. Because Antonio showed us it was time, because Miguel is ready. And, she turned back to Helena, because you are also ready, Helena. Ready for what? To understand, to accept, to make the hardest choice a mother can make, deciding what is best for her child, even if it means letting go of what you desire most. Helena stood up, unable to remain seated while her world turned upside down. I want to see my son, now. Clara nodded, as if expecting exactly this reaction. He is in the music chamber. Antonio will take you there. She paused significantly. But I must warn you, Helena. Miguel underwent a ritual of memory purification when he arrived at the Haven. It was necessary, so he could fully adapt to our life, so ties to the outside world wouldn't interfere with the development of his gifts. What are you saying? Helena felt a chill down her spine. I'm saying he may not fully recognize you, not immediately. The word struck Helena like a physical blow. The idea that her own son might look at her like a stranger was almost unbearable. Antonio stood up and extended his hand to Helena, his eyes conveying an understanding that seemed far beyond his few years. He'll remember, the boy said, his small voice full of certainty. In his heart, he never forgot. The walk to the music chamber seemed to last an eternity. Helena felt each heartbeat like a drumbeat heralding an imminent storm. Mariana followed a few steps behind, respecting the moment but present if needed. Finally, Antonio stopped before an opening covered by light curtains, from which emanated soft music, a simple melody played on a stringed instrument Helena couldn't identify. The boy pushed aside the curtain, revealing a circular space lit by candles and oil lamps. In the center, sitting on a rustic cushion, was Miguel. His hair had grown longer, now framing a face that seemed more mature than his 9 years warranted. In his hands, an instrument similar to a lyre, whose strings he plucked with a skill Helena had never seen before. Around him, seated in a circle, were several children of different ages, all with eyes closed, serene expressions on their faces, as if Miguel's music transported them to a place of absolute peace. Helena froze at the entrance, unable to take another step, afraid of breaking the spell of that moment, afraid of the moment her son would open his eyes and possibly look at her without the recognition she so longed to see. It was Miguel who sensed her presence first. The music stopped abruptly in the boy's eyes, those same eyes Helena first saw 9 years ago when she held him in her arms for the first time, opened and fixed directly on hers. For a terrible moment, there was nothing. No sign of recognition, no reaction beyond curiosity. Then, like clouds parting after a storm, something shifted in Miguel's expression. It wasn't complete recognition, not the cry of "Mommy" Helena had dreamed of hearing for 2 agonizing years. It was more subtle, a slight furrowing of his brow, an almost imperceptible tilt of his head, as if trying to recall a distant dream. "I know you," he finally said, his voice deeper than Helena remembered, but still unmistakably her son's voice. "You're part of my songs." Helena took a step forward, then another, approaching cautiously, like one approaches a wild animal. "Yes, Miguel," she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I'm part of your songs, and you're part of mine. Always have been." Antonio appeared beside Miguel, whispering something in his ear. Helena's son looked at the amulet the other boy held out to him, the same amulet Helena had given him years ago, the same one Antonio had brought as proof of his connection to Angel's Haven. "You gave this to me," Miguel said, not as a question, but as a statement. "To protect me." "Yes," Helena replied, kneeling a safe distance away. "So you would know that no matter where you were, my love would always be with you." Miguel studied the amulet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the sharp outlines of the carved stones. Then, to Helena's surprise, he picked up his instrument and began to play again. But this time the melody was familiar. It was the lullaby Helena's grandmother had created, the same one Antonio had sung at the festival. And as he played, something extraordinary happened. The other children in the circle, who had remained silent until then, began to sing along as if they had known the song for a long time. Their young voices rose in perfect harmony, transforming the lullaby into something transcendent, almost sacred. Helena felt Mariana approach from behind, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He remembers," the social worker whispered, maybe not with his mind, but with his soul. When the music ended, Miguel stood up and, to everyone's surprise, walked directly to Helena. Without hesitation, he reached out and touched her face, as if confirming she was real. "I dreamed about you," he said. "Many times. You were always searching for something. For me." Helena couldn't hold back her tears. "Yes, Miguel, always for you. I never stopped searching, not for a single day." And then, in a movement as natural as the dawn after a long night, Miguel hugged her, not with the complete recognition of a son, but with the instinctive acceptance of one heart recognizing another, even when the mind cannot name the connection. It was in this moment that Helena understood what Clara meant. The hardest choice wasn't finding Miguel. It was deciding what happened next. Force him to return to a life he possibly didn't fully remember? Tear him away from a place where his gifts were valued and cultivated? Or find a middle ground, a path that respected both blood ties and the purpose Miguel seemed to have found in the Haven? Returning to Clara's room, leaving Miguel with Antonio and the other children, Helena felt simultaneously filled and empty. Filled with the joy of finding her son alive and well, emptied by the realization that the path ahead would be neither simple nor easy. "You have options," Clara said, seeming to read her thoughts. "You can take Miguel back to town. We wouldn't stop you. Our principles don't include separating children from loving parents against their will. But," Helena sensed an implied but the purification ritual cannot be completely reversed. Memories may return gradually, or perhaps never return in their entirety. And his gift might not find proper expression in the outside world, where the pressure to conform, to be normal, could suffocate him. Helena looked at Mariana, seeking advice, guidance. "What would you do?" she asked the social worker. "If it were your son? If it were James?" Mariana thought for a moment, her gaze distant as if contemplating a possibility she had long abandoned. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "Part of me never gave up searching for him. Part of me wants to believe he's somewhere like this, safe, thriving. What I do know is that you have something I didn't have, Helena. A choice." Clara looked at both women with an expression of deep understanding. "There is a third option," she said softly. "One that isn't common, but has happened before. A bridge between worlds." Clara's proposal was bold, even revolutionary by Angel's Haven standards. A gradual integration between the isolated community and the town, not a full exposure, which could attract curious onlookers, skeptics, and possibly authorities who wouldn't understand the Haven's purpose, but a controlled opening, starting with Miguel. He would spend part of his time with you, Helena, in town, relearning how to be your son, reconnecting with the life he had, and part of his time here continuing his training, helping other children through his music. "Like shared custody?" Helena asked, finding the concept simultaneously strange and fitting. "Like a bridge," Clara corrected. "A connection between two worlds that need each other more than they admit." The following weeks were ones of adjustments, negotiations, and gradually healing. Helena, with Mariana's help, developed an official plan explaining Miguel's reappearance, without exposing Angel's Haven. A plausible story involving irregular adoption and memory recovery, supported by carefully prepared documents that would satisfy the authorities. Miguel divided his time between Helena's apartment in Ashton Creek and the Haven in the mountains. Each day he seemed to remember more details of his previous life, not through forced interventions or invasive therapies, but through natural coexistence, resuming forgotten routines, reconnecting with spaces and objects that were once familiar. Antonio, to Helena's surprise, decided to stay. The little finder, as Clara called him, seemed to have developed a special bond not only with Miguel, but with Helena herself. It was as if his mission, initially just to reunite mother and son, had expanded to include building a new kind of family, one that transcended blood ties. The Festival of Lanterns, a traditional celebration marking the end of winter in Ashton Creek, became the symbol of this new reality. According to tradition, paper lanterns, when lit and released into the night sky, guided lost souls home. Helena, Miguel, and Antonio lit a special lantern together, larger and more elaborate than the others, decorated with symbols from both the town and Angel's Haven. When they released it, they watched in silence as it rose into the starry sky, joining hundreds of others that transformed the night into a river of floating light. "It will guide others, won't it?" Miguel asked, his voice blending the innocence of the child he was with a wisdom that defied his age. "Others who are lost?" Helena looked at her son, really looked at him, seeing not just the boy she had lost and found, but the young person he was becoming, one who existed comfortably between two worlds. "Yes," she answered, hugging his shoulders. "And us too." Beside them, Antonio smiled, that enigmatic smile Helena now recognized as the sign that the little finder was already sensing new broken bonds, new families to reunite. The apartment, that had once been a museum of painful memories, transformed into a vibrant space. Miguel's room now housed both his old toys and new musical instruments brought from the Haven. On the walls, drawings blended artistic techniques from town with traditional symbols from the mountain community. The herb garden on the balcony, once kept only as a memory of her missing son, expanded to include medicinal plants taught by the Haven's healer. And Helena, the psychologist once defined solely by her search, found a new purpose. Using both her professional knowledge and the lessons learned on her journey, she established a clinic specializing in family reunification, a space where parents separated from their children by traumatic circumstances could find not only psychological support, but also concrete hope. Mariana became her partner in this endeavor, bringing her experience as a social worker and her own personal history. Together, they created a system that worked both within and outside official structures. understanding that some reunifications couldn't happen through conventional channels. And what about Antonio? The mysterious boy who appeared on a rainy night remained an enigma in many ways, but an enigma who was now an integral part of the family, bringing with him an extraordinary gift: the ability to sense when other families were separated and needed to be reunited. On quiet nights, when the wind drifted gently down from the mountains carrying the scent of pine and the distant sound of flutes from the haven, Helena often found herself on her apartment balcony, watching the city lights below and the mountain shadows above. Two worlds, once separated by distrust and misunderstanding, now connected by a delicate but sturdy bridge. A bridge built by a mother who never gave up, a son with the gift of healing through music, and a mysterious child who appeared exactly when he was needed most. And if sometimes, in particularly quiet moments, Helena sensed presences that couldn't be explained by the science that was once her only guide, gentle shadows that seemed to watch over the sleeping children, whispers reminiscent of her father's voice among the leaves in the garden. Well, she had learned that some mysteries didn't need to be solved to be true. For in the end, the deepest lesson Angel's Haven had taught her wasn't about supernatural gifts or secret mountain communities. It was about the transformative power of hope, that stubborn flame that refuses to go out, even when everyone around has already given up. That inner light that, like the festival lanterns, can guide lost souls home, no matter how long or dark the night.